What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Panthers advice today, man. We're going to talk about what Cam Newton recently said about Bryce Young and the Panthers, as well as the coaching staff, so Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, as well as the Panthers defense. There's a couple of things I want to go over before they start to spiral out of control. Let's jump into the video.
First up, man, the fans want to know what's going on in Carolina. So they hired a new head coach, Dan Canales. And then they also hired the GM, a man that you do know, Dan Morgan.
Yeah.
Keep Tepper out of the football. Is this a good decision that they made? These two
Dan
hires?
Morgan, yes.
Dan Morgan. Mm-hmm.
Dave Canales, I don't necessarily know. So the good thing about this is it is an offensive-minded coach, and
let's pause it right there, right? So that seems to be the big thing everyone's talking about. Was Dave the right hire for the Panthers? Well, lucky for you guys, I put a slideshow of every head coach so far that's been hired. If I missed one, let me know, but I'm pretty sure I got them all. We're going to break them down real quick. We're not going to spend too much time on it and go over, could they have helped out Bryce Young more than Dave? Let's start with guy number one. That is Dan Quinn, Cowboys defensive coordinator formerly, now the Commanders' new head coach. Dan Quinn, does that make sense? We already have a Giro. To me, that doesn't make sense. Let's jump to coach number two. That's going to be Mike McDonald, now the Seattle Seahawks' new head coach, formerly the Ravens' defensive coordinator. Again, we have a Giro. Do we need another defensive guy? To me, no. Let's check out coach number three. That's going to be Brian Callahan. Now, I'm not necessarily saying he couldn't have done it, but he's coming from the Bengals, where he had Boyd, Chase, Higgins, Mixon, Perrine, Hayden Hurst at one point, if I remember right. I'm not saying he couldn't do it in Carolina. I would just like to see more body of work. We'll see what he does in Tennessee. Let's jump to the next guy. That's going to be Gerard Mayo. Now, Gerard is kind of like that situation in Vegas and Houston, right? Houston, D'Amico Ryans, Vegas, Antonio Pierce. Great defensive player. Could he come in and change Bryce Young? I don't know. The next guy we're going to look at is actually going to be Antonio Pierce. Same thing kind of applies there. If you guys think they could, comment below, but I kind of like Dave over most of these guys so far. So this one right here is the only one where I'm like, ooh, maybe Harbaugh potentially could have helped out Bryce Young more than Dave. Potentially, right? I'm not saying one way or another. Instead, he chose to go to LA. He's got Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Eckler. So we'll see what happens there. And right here is going to be our last coach we're going to look at, Raheem Morris. Once again, another great defensive guy, right? Let's say we hire one of them. Well, who are we going to bring in to help out Bryce Young, right? Who's going to help him out? As it stands right now, I think Dave was a good hire. Obviously, we'll see what free agency moves they make. Who do they trade for? What do they put around him? And then we'll see his footwork, right? Preseason, training camp, OTAs. We'll see all that there. Let's keep the video going.
What about Dan Morgan? So why is he a good fit as the GM?
he knows the city
Okay.
of Charlotte.
The original.
Yeah,
Like,
he knows what the culture is.
Okay.
He went to the Super Bowl with that 2003 team, right? So he has some type of tenure of understanding, what the fans' expectations is.
And he had a record too.
This part right here is going to be interesting, right? Cam talks about he knows the culture. He's played the game at the highest level. Great player, right? What's going to be interesting to watch is how does he change the culture from the jump, right? Who does he get rid of? Who does he sign? Who do we trade for? Who do we draft? That's something I can't wait to watch, right? I'm really curious to see what his first move is going to be as GM. Is there a trade, free agency, draft? I can't wait. I'm going to build a little bit more on top of this towards the end of the video. Let's keep it going.
Now, even with him, it's just going to show, what is going to be the focus. They have to identify what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know what I'm saying? We want to stop the run. Okay, cool. You want to stop the run, you got to invest in your front seven. All right, we want to stop the pass. Okay, you focus on the secondary. It's evident going into the draft or the offseason, what the point of emphasis is. So I think curating what the focus is for the team identity is essential.
So right there kind of builds off what I was saying before, right? Where does Dan target first? If we look at the sacks from last year, we got Brian Burns with 8, Frankie Louvu with 5.5, YGM with 4.5, Derek Brown with 2, and then 7 guys with 1, right? So Top 3 guys, 8, 5.5, 4.5, drops to 2, then drops to 1. We need more pass rush. And you could make the argument, right? You could play devil's advocate and say, okay, teams got up on us, so teams weren't passing as much, so it didn't allow a lot of other guys to get a sack, right? You could make that argument, but I'm not buying it, right? YGM, good stuff for him, 4.5. Frankie Louvu played outstanding this year. To me, probably comeback player of the year for the Panthers, and obviously Brian Burns, right? We have to have somebody else step up, right? Somebody else has to step up. When you've got Brian Burns, Louvu playing as good as he did, and then Derek Brown, obviously he's that centerpiece in the middle. I don't expect him to get sacks. Teams are going to basically build blocking schemes around him. Other guys should be getting pressure when teams are worried about Brian Burns on the outside and Derek Brown in the middle. There is no reason that we shouldn't have more sacks. Now, yes, like I said before, teams did get up on us, right? But again, man, we need more than that. Derek Brown in the middle, Brian Burns on the outside. Somebody else has to step up on that other side. YGM, good stuff, 4.5. Frankie Louvu, middle linebacker. So he's kind of playing around Derek Brown, right? Somebody else has to be on that other side and getting sacks. There's really no excuse for it. Let me know what you guys think. The secondary is going to be interesting, right? It's definitely going to be interesting. You got CJ, Jeremy Chin. What's going to happen with those two? That's going to wrap it up. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Baker Mayfield in Carolina versus Tampa Bay coming tomorrow. Stay tuned. I'll catch you guys on the next one. A lot more content coming soon.